the purpose of a business is to do business.
Yep.
But every business, the multi-billion-dollar businesses, there are people, human beings with their emotions behind it.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
no business can get done until we have the right balance on everyone's emotions and relationships and understanding. I agree with you that unfortunately it's been so much buzzwords about empathy and buzzwords about diversity, equity, and inclusion and all the things that we love to have, but when it becomes that noise and buzzwords, we can't really see it clearly. We can't really understand the deep meaning of it.
Totally. Right. It becomes the soundbite instead of the concept. Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. And I'm very excited for today's guest, Nassim Abdi, who I met at the Professional Women's Club of Chicago several months ago. I heard you speak. I loved what you were talking about. I absolutely loved, you're going to hate this, but I love the fact that you didn't feel good and you did such a great job anyway. Right? Because I get it. You show up, you do what you said you were going to do when you said you're going to do it, and you make things happen. And I loved your message. And I've been watching in the interim. I've been watching since then. But before we get into amazing conversation, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more officially who you are and all the things and what you do?
Well, thank you so much, Erin. You make me laugh. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. It's such an honor to be on your podcast, Erin. And I remember that day very good.
I'm sure. Ooh.
It was, to your point, it was one of those days that you feel like you have no energy and you have to put all your energy to give it all. And I'm glad that I'm hearing that you heard it, and it feels good when I hear that because you can't evaluate yourself when you're not feeling well. So I'm glad to hear I got some good feedback about that. I'm Nassim Abdi, pronounced she and her. I'm the CEO and co-founder of StoryBolt, and I'm so excited about that conversation, talking all about entrepreneurship and empathy and everything that we need to talk about.
All the things.
So
before we hit record, and I always think I should just hit record in the beginning, we were chatting a little bit because I'm so excited to be having this conversation, and I want to get your opinion on it and your approach on it. And please share as much as your personal journey and story as you're comfortable with, because I think that really played into what I heard you talk about. This idea of empathy in leadership, empathy in the workplace. How in the world is a business that exists to make money, that's why they exist, supposed to be able to use empathy in their leadership and their culture, while the same people who spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day at that desk are then immersed in what is, my opinion, unfortunately, outrage as a culture. Online and in the media. Like, how are you supposed to counter that? Like, where do you even, just if you can answer that really simple question in like 2 seconds.
Well, that's a $1 million question, Erin. That's a great question, and I have so many thoughts around it. I'll tell you what comes to my mind right now. To your point, the purpose of a business is to do business.
Yep.
But every business, the multi-billion-dollar businesses, there are people, human beings with their emotions behind it.
Absolutely.
So no business can get done until we have the right balance on everyone's emotions and relationships and understanding. I agree with you that unfortunately it's been so much. I don't know what to call it. I want to say buzzwords about
Yeah.
empathy and buzzwords about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all the things that we love to have, but when it becomes that noise and buzzwords, we can't really see it clearly. We can't really understand the deep meaning of it.
Totally. Right. It becomes the soundbite
Yeah.
instead of the concept.
You know what it's like? It's like the news. When you hear the number of deaths of this war or that shooting, you hear it so much that you go numb and you can't pay attention to anything anymore.
Stops having an impact, or it stops having the appropriate impact.
The appropriate impact. And the opposite side of empathy is that, right? Empathy is all about deep feeling and understanding and really walking in other people's shoes and trying to find that middle way. Bringing people together is not about dividing and outrage and none of that.
And what I don't understand, again, if you have the answer, what's so amazing to me, so at my age, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, right? It's amazing to me to watch the openness of youth, right? How far they've come in openness. And yet, if that's true, and it is true, I do believe it's true, how is it possible at the same time to see such closed-mindedness existing in that same world, in that same space?
Yeah. I think there are so many things that are happening at the same time. Obviously, that what you were talking before you start recording about technology and how it's changing all the time and the impact of it. Honestly, like we've been surrounded with our own bubbles because of the algorithm of all these search engines that are out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is something that we are trying really hard at StoryBolt. We are thinking about that very deeply. Before I start, maybe I should tell listeners what StoryBolt is.
We have this great
jumped into. So just to very quickly to explain what you're doing, so everything else makes sense in that context. StoryBolt is a platform for corporate culture training that uses the power of documentary storytelling and gamified data collection with supporting analytics. So we say that we change companies' cultures one story at a time, and we do that through the power of empathy and understanding by watching a human-centered story, a real story. These are award-winning documentaries that we are repurposing in our platform. So on every topic that you can go to on corporate culture, there is a story that we can watch.
And I just want to, I never really thought about it until I heard you explain it this way. It reminds me of why is this so effective? Why is it such an effective approach? And it reminds me when I got my MBA, the thing that getting my MBA taught me was how to think differently. Like the baseline, okay, you have all this accounting and finance and marketing, all the different pieces, but what it really teaches you is how to think differently because of case studies.
Yes.
Actual case studies, not right where you're talking about actual content, not theoretical concepts, but actual content, actual things that happen that you can then take apart, investigate, have conversations about, and why that has such a bigger impact and effect than if you're just making a list of things you should be doing.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. No, I can't agree more with that. And that's exactly what we're saying. These are case studies of those feelings, those important issues of culture that people can get engaged with and watch and understand. And from there, hopefully we are able to have that critical thinking and the mindset of understanding and navigating our way around. So one thing that going back to what you were talking about technology and how that changed the environment, one thing that unfortunately is happening with technology is we've been channeled to listen only to people like us.
Yes.
Which is the problem. When we are surrounded in our own bubbles and we are not getting any other information from different perspectives, it's so hard. Your mindset's shaped by that, and you can't be open to other things, right?
And it goes a little bit under the category of give yourself a break, but don't let yourself off the hook. Like, this is happening, and the way that our brain works, literal neuroscience, is why we believe what we're surrounded by. Even if you start out only not really believing it, if you're immersed in it,
narratives are the strongest things. There are books and studies on that incredible books. I can't remember the title of the book. I will share it with you afterwards if you want to share, but there's a book that I just recently read about the power of stories and narratives and how they shape our beliefs. And that's it. And there's a really also amazing TED Talk that I listened to and I shared in my past life, and I was a faculty at university. I shared it with my students many times. The danger of a single story.
Yes.
It's a really famous TED Talk. If you search the danger of single story, you'll find it, and talks about like when you listen to only one narrative, there is a danger that your belief's going to shape with that one narrative, and you're not going to be open to all others. So what we are thinking with StoryBolt is, as we are growing, we are thinking about how we can create an algorithm that refer you that because you watch this, now you think you should watch this.
Just counter it.
Yeah.
Just
now
counter
listen
it
to another case study. Now watch another story that is going to give you that openness, so you can understand all different perspectives and then have a meaningful dialogue, conversation around it. And to your point, for business, what matters is making business happen, right? But as a leader, if you can't understand what are the different perspectives around you, and everybody else cannot get along with that understanding of others, it's so hard.
It's so hard. And here's a personal example that I just found out about. It's my boyfriend's old boss. Mm-hmm. My boyfriend's old boss was an amazing, amazing human. Is an amazing human. Mm-hmm. So personable. So here you have this gentleman in a financial services business who is in charge of an entire city-based region, and yet finds time to interact with you as a human all the time. And meanwhile, we've watched his career, and I've watched him over and over. To your point about business exists to do business, I have watched this man now get another promotion, and for over and over again, take the worst performing territory in the country, and in a very short time, turn it into the best one. And it's the human side of him that is doing that.
Exactly. And that's completely directly related to business. It's one of the superpowers of a good leader that can do that.
It's so it's very like, I think when you're working in this field, if your business is in this field, or truthfully any business, you need to show the ROI to your,
of course,
right?
Of course.
But helping people understand the ROI on empathy, the ROI on inclusion, the ROI on culture, right? It's so directly related, and yet we treat it like it's a fluffy afterthought. We treat it like it's a box I have to check so I don't get in trouble with the government.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, it's obviously the base of everything, and we used to understand it that way. And we got sort of off-road because of all the noise and all the buzz that you hear around, and it just takes the focus from the right part and put it on the wrong part.
So, little personal background, how did you get into this topic, right? How did this come about?
Well, yeah, it's a very personal story that I would be more than happy to share here with you and all the listeners, because I think so many things comes from your own personal experiences, how you go passionately after this. And there's a famous saying that the best way of knowledge is being, by I think one of the old wise people from the past, which I don't remember who. And I think for me, that's exactly what happened. I was not in startup world or like building platforms. I'm not a tech person. I was a faculty member, an educator, teaching about education and women's studies, intersection of education and women's studies. And my passion was always about education. How can we help younger generation understand better, deeper?
Mhm.
And I've done all the studies on that, on learning and different ways of learning, and how can we really be innovative about it and get to the core of it, where we don't care about the grades, but we really care about what we are learning, what we are teaching our new generation, the knowledge, the understanding.
Yeah.
So I've been working on that, and got my PhD on this topic. And one day I got to academia. So let me start from there. I'm an immigrant. I came to the US in 2003 as a grad student. I'm originally from Iran, so I'm Iranian American now. And I'm sure many people have heard the name of Iran, unfortunately, because of the government's. And also, women of Iran, I'm so proud of them because of the revolution that they have started recently.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Just a side note, my father is a judge and has been a judge for international powerlifting competitions.
Oh, wow.
And so he's traveled the world.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his absolute best friends, Jewish, United States, and one of his absolute best friends is a judge from Iran.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I love about sports.
That's so true. And also, like our team, we are a small team, but we have one of our wonderful team members that we have is a Jewish Canadian member that we understand each other so beautifully.
Right.
There's nothing about it that.
And so you came here in the 2000s. So I went to Chicago public schools in the 70s and 80s, where there was just waves of immigration at that time.
Yeah.
And my brother and I once counted, we went to public school with people from 22 different countries.
Wow.
In the 70s and 80s, nobody spoke English. Nobody had anything.
Yeah.
And you're kids, so you all just try to get along, and because all you want to do is play with each other.
Exactly.
And we didn't know then what a gift that was.
Yeah.
What an amazing gift that was, to learn so young, to be immersed in that level.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. That's what I'm hoping and I'm dreaming for my boys to have. Exactly.
And I am watching him recreate that with his daughters, who growing up in Chicago are very much immersed in their friends' cultures.
Yeah. It's beautiful when that happens. Yeah. That was one of the things that we definitely looked into when we decided where to live. And I think that's going back to our conversation. That's where you get different perspectives.
Right.
That's where you get introduced to different viewpoints, life approaches, cultures.
And it removes the fear.
Yeah. And then you're there and you're
known.
Yeah.
Like your friends' parents yell at them for the same thing that your parents yell at you for. You don't have to
exactly
language to know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's
Absolutely.
just, there's a level of sameness.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast, brought to you by Conquer Your Business. With decades of experience, Conquer Your Business creates business and branding strategies that build multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses. And we don't just show you what to do. We have an entire team of people available to help you do it, strategy and implementation. You can learn more and reach out to us by visiting conqueryourbusiness.com.
Going back to the story, I was teaching and I was passionate to come up with new ideas, innovative ideas to help my students get engaged. And one day they challenged me. One day I went to class and I got this perfect session that I was waiting for, because I was really passionate about to help them understand about impact of war on people. And as you know, I grew up during an 8 year of a brutal war, and my childhood was during that war. Unfortunately, I lost a fiance due to chemical attacks. And it was something that all cells of my body wanted them to understand, that when you experience something like that, it's so different from when you watch on TV in the news that this number of people were killed and so on, so on. Numbers are not telling you the stories behind everyone. Like, all these numbers have names and have stories, and you don't hear them. So I thought that was my dream, Erin. I thought I'm going to go there, share my personal story. We're going to get engaged a little bit into theories, talking about like, how can we prevent this? What are the ways to do this? And they're going to jump and say that they don't want to do another final paper or exam. They want to do a project, something to do about it. And none of that happened, unfortunately. I didn't. I didn't even get proper eye contact. They were busy with their devices, on their computers, probably because they couldn't relate to my stories, or they were overwhelmed of hearing such a story. It was too much. Whatever the reason was, only my 2 veteran students came to me after that, and we had an amazing conversation because they experienced it as well. We were talking about our experiences, and it was such a powerful conversation that we had. But the 3 of us were like, that's not enough. Those who have not experienced it need to understand, because if you experience it, it's too late already.
Right.
Right.
You're already there.
You're already there, with all the trauma and everything that you should not experience. And that was the moment that pushed me really hard to think about, when was the last time that I was in a room with a group of people that we didn't have that shared life experience, but we got really engaged to better understand each other. And it reminded me of an experience that I never thought going to be helpful, but I happened to be the leading actress of a film that was featured on Netflix, got theatrical release in the US and Europe. So the year that I came to US, 2003, the movie was already released in theaters, and it was on Netflix. So, and all of that because of a brilliant director, not because of me. But when I came, I was named as the leading actress of that movie. So wherever I went, they want to have a screening and a Q&A, which I was shy about at the beginning, because I was like, I'm a grad student, I need to focus on my...
Well, you're right. You're trying to change
I was changing direction and perception. But then with the Q&As, I found that they became the best part of this experience, because I found my best friend for life through these Q&As. From places that I had no idea that I might find such friendships. I found friends who came to the hospital when I gave birth to my boys. That kind of friendship, really deep, really. We moved from that location, and I still have those relationships. They're still like first people when any achievement, any success, any worry about my kids, they are the first people that I'm contacting.
Right.
That kind of relationship. So long story short, that was the moment that I thought, well, I got those amazing relationships and connections and understanding because we watched the story together. And then when I walk outside to talk to them, it was like the story came to life for them. And we were able to sit down and pause all the biases. There was no label on my forehead when we were sitting down, and we could talk.
Well, because you're talking about, it removes the threat, because you're not talking about me and I'm not talking about you. You're talking about this external, but highly impactful
story.
Third party situation.
Yes. And there is so much research and science behind it, Erin, that I started learning about right after. So for my class, I was like, can I find the right story? And can I convince the filmmaker to join? And that was back in Purdue, Indiana. So you can imagine like finding the filmmaker to join.
To come to the middle of Indiana.
Yeah, how can we make that happen? But thanks to technology, there was the video conferencing opportunity in the class. And a good friend of mine in Brooklyn, New York, made her first short documentary about this plastic surgeon who dedicated his life to victims of war. And he was training other surgeons. And she traveled with him all around the world to train other surgeons and to capture all these stories. And the story that she made the film about became the story about this little boy, the Iraqi boy, which was actually the country that was in war with Iran.
Right.
This little 4-year-old Iraqi boy that it didn't matter to anyone. It was just a little sweet little boy whose head got disfigured in a car explosion. And the film named Facing the Mirror. It starts with this scene of the little boy goes to the mirror, look at himself, he doesn't recognize himself, and he starts crying. It just, that 30 seconds tells you all the stories that you need to hear about the war. That one day you wake up, your neighborhood is not the same. The person that you plan your future is not going to be there. Nothing is the same. You feel lost. You feel you don't know yourself. And I couldn't tell my students that feeling by just telling them about, like, this is what I experienced. This is what I did. This is what I heard. But that scene of that little boy and the rest of the movie was so engaging that they were gazed on the screen. I saw tears. They didn't touch their computers or phones. And when the filmmaker joined on the screen, they asked brilliant questions from her. The same group that had no questions for me, and I didn't feel even did they hear me? Did we was it a one-way conversation? Did they talk to the walls or did they talk to them?
I know that feeling.
Yeah. And they stood up and they said they want to do projects. They want to engage plastic surgeons in Indiana with the same institution that the surgeon in the movie started. So that was dream come true for me. And I started doing research about the science behind it. And there was incredible literature and research on how a human-centered story fires up all the mirror neurons in our brain, what we call now at StoryBolt, we call it the real muscle of empathy in our brain.
Yes.
Language comprehension, music, like visuals of the movie triggers those mirror neurons. Just like when you watch a horror movie and you see a spider in the back of someone walking, you feel it in your body.
Right.
That's exactly it. Like you watch a human-centered story and it releases a chemical called oxytocin. Mm-hmm. And oxytocin is that exact chemical for compassionate empathy. And that's the moment that you can pause and listen and connect and ask good questions, get curious, and sort of embrace all the new learning and new perspective that you're seeing. Compassionate empathy is exactly the opposite side of just looking into quantitative data. Because when you look at data, your logical brain just works and it doesn't get into deeper layers of feeling, because you're just saying, okay, this now a number of people are killed, so it's bad, but that it's bad.
Right. You can say it doesn't feel, there's no attachment.
You don't feel it with your, but with that chemical, you walk in their shoes, you understand them. And that's what we started. So I started using it for class and at universities. And then we started seeing that we need more stories. So we started doing our own film festivals to find the right short stories. And now we have more than 4,000 short documentaries from 112 countries around the world. And we found that, to your point, companies and corporations and leaders, this is something that is needed to have the right culture, to better understand each other, to be able to do business while we are understanding each other. And we took it to that market and started.
And more important than ever, kind of like to where we started this conversation, when you're externally immersed in the opposite of empathy.
Yes.
When even, and I decided this a long time ago, even when our entertainment is based on the opposite of empathy, right? All the reality TV shows that are based on just, so it's in they, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
This idea that being mean to each other is entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah. Which is so sad, because that's what shapes our perspectives and the narrative that shapes our beliefs, and how it would be different if we had a different kinds of stories to watch. And
so how can people bring this to their own businesses?
Yeah, I think there are so many ways around. To your point, when you were talking about your boyfriend's boss, being personable and being ready to listen to people, I think and it starts from leadership, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
It can't go, it can't go bottom up. I mean, there are so many amazing people who want to bring it to an organization, but if they don't have the power and the resources, how can they do that?
If they just hit a wall, then you're not right.
Yeah, and you can't put all the something that started since 2020 that I talked about it at many conferences and opportunities that I got, is that we think that we could put all the responsibilities of bringing that culture on the shoulders of one person that we call Chief Diversity Officer. Come on, how can one person make everything?
And then don't give them a budget.
And don't give them a budget, and they don't have the power and the C-level. There was a really interesting article that got published about how that C-level is not the same as other C-levels in so many organizations.
Because they're not directly, they're not seen to be directly related to bottom line.
Yes, that they can't, like the organizations.
Right. They're looked at as an expense.
And there are some who got it, and they're doing really well because of that. Because they understand that if they don't have that culture of inclusivity, they're going to lose high quality talent.
Right.
They're going to lose team performance. It costs companies and corporations in North America alone $500 billion a year when they lose high quality talent and lower performance.
Think about that. $500 billion because you're a jerk instead of a good person. Like, come on.
Exactly.
Come on.
So the business case is there. It's the easiest. Yeah. I think the problem is they shaped it under a narrative that they're misleading themselves as well.
Yeah.
That there is no connection there. There is a connection, and it's getting stronger and stronger. Gen Z and millennials, they are not going to work in an environment that is not paying attention to. Yeah.
And they shouldn't.
I'm so proud that they
I laugh. I don't know if I was ahead of my time or if I had no attention span, but I do laugh at the fact that the Great Resignation needed a label. Like, people needed a label to have permission to quit being treated poorly.
Yeah.
I quit every job I hated.
There you go.
How hard is it? And I like this simplest, in simple terms. You want to know how to not have problems finding and retaining good talent? Be the place that everyone wants to be.
And look at those companies who are thriving because of that. They're doing really well because they understand that people need to feel being included, right? And inclusion is so different from diversity. Diversity is like inviting people to a party, and inclusion is inviting them to dance. One thing that I added to that is not just inviting them to dance, inviting them to pick the music also sometimes.
Yes.
Right? Because if I'm as an Iranian American with the Persian culture, if I'm invited to a party and I can't dance, I'm gonna leave. Right? I'm gonna leave.
That's not a party.
That's not a party.
Not a party. But right, I mean, it's so true. And two things. One, nap rooms and ping pong tables is not what people want.
Yeah.
Not really. They can do that at home. And the other thing is going back to psychology. Base psychology, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
People have an innate desire to be a better person, to do a good job.
Exactly.
Most people want to do a good job.
Exactly.
But if they don't feel safe,
then it becomes a toxic culture because
can't
nobody
do
feels
it.
safe. Yeah, you can't do it. And to your point of like ping pong tables and nap rooms are not the right culture. Again, listen to your employees. What are their needs? Like these offsites that you put to build that right culture, and then you invite them to whatever event that is not matched with what their culture and their feeling of, okay, this is a relaxing event, we are going to be together, we can create that psychological safety to hear that, and then everything going to fall into place. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but if you listen, it's easier than just
absolutely.
trying to.
Absolutely. So if people want to continue this conversation with you, and seriously, I say a lot of times, I highly recommend that people connect with my guests, but I just so believe not just what I love is not just what you're doing, but like this cracking of the code of how to do it. That's one of my big soapboxes, is there's a million people out there telling you what to do, but not how to do it. And what you've brought is, look, this is a way on how to do it.
Yeah.
How do they connect with you? How do they find out more?
Yeah, for sure. We are right now working with larger corporations at the moment. And the reason is because we are a small startup and we need to stay focused on what we should stay focused on.
But they can follow you.
They can absolutely
share
follow,
freely.
and absolutely there are solutions out there for every size of organization.
Yes.
It's just like, to your point, how to do it is the important part. I'm very active on LinkedIn and love to be in touch with people. Also, our website, storybolt.com. If they sign up there, they can follow the newsletters, updates, news stories, new ways that we get engaged, and we would love to share those with people and hear from everyone.
I tell people all the time, sign up, get the information, look for your nugget, right? We can't learn everything at once. Look for your nugget, listen for your nugget, and then go do something.
Yeah, we would love to help if we can help. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's absolutely something that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time and your story and your insights. And I'm glad you feel better today than the last time I talked.
Thank you.
Yeah, seriously, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity and for this great conversation, Erin.